volunteered here at Pro Tour Thunder Junction. Stand heard, if you will. Cedric, are you in pain? I'm going to pass it on over to you.
All right, we're going to get underway, everyone. And it's great to have your company as we get stuck into our standard rounds here at Pro Tour Thunder Junction.
This face is just going to stare right at that camera.
Eventually, they have to take
the cow
off the
jokes
camera.
stop.
That's it. Eventually, they're going to flip it over to two very serious boys waiting to get underway with round number 4. I'm looking forward to Standard, man. I've had a lot of fun playing this format, and there's one deck in particular I've been enjoying as I've been sort of preparing, getting ready for this tournament, and that's this Analyst deck.
Yeah.
This Temur Analyst deck. I started playing the Jund version as well. I hope we're going to get to see a little bit of that on camera. This list is so much fun. It's crazy fun, and it's also pretty good too as well, which helps,
So this is an interesting deck of the tournament, a little bit of a flashpoint here. A lot of people know this deck is really good. A lot of people also know how to beat this deck, which is mostly Rest in Peace. And the big question coming into this tournament, because the power level of this Analyst deck is very high, is have the players that are playing this deck found a way to overcome Rest in Peace? Naturally, we're going to find out over the course of 10 constructed rounds in the next couple of days here, Riley. But if players have figured out a way to defeat that powerful enchantment, it could be the breakout deck of the tournament.
I've had a chat with a couple of Temur players and got their perspective, which I'll share. But again, it's worth reminding people that Muhan, you here, getting off to a flyer 3-0, a regional champion, Cedric.
Yes.
Won the MTG China Open in Guangzhou and representing the region here in the best way you possibly can. In round number 4, undefeated, 3-0. And we're kicking things off now with the Shigeki Jukai Visionary. This is a card that isn't often played in a huge number. You don't play the 4 of Shigeki in your Temur lists. And this one in particular is only playing it as a 1 of. Usually you don't want to cast it. In fact, most of the time you want to channel it to bring back cards from the bin. But hey, look, needs must. You play it on turn 2 if you've got nothing else going on.
It's a little bit of a slow start here from Stefano in a deck that has so many 1-drops in Boros Convoke, and given that this deck has Convoke in the name, the goal is to put as many creatures on the battlefield as possible, and then to Convoke a Knight Errant of Eos and just continue to run downhill. We are seeing an unusually slow start here from Stefano. Now, if there's nothing happening on turn 2, this part's pretty obvious, which is there's going to be a resolute reinforcement, I believe, making a 1-1 alongside. So, this is the slow end of the start, but you have to expect something that resembles an explosion happening this turn. Otherwise, you may have just kept a pretty poor hand. Yeah,
what was the hand that you kept at that stage? But as you can see, Vinci's got plenty of business to work with here. And 2 copies of Knight Errant of Eos. We're going to see 1 copy here. It's a really, really important card in this list.
Well, this is the Convoke portion of the deck. Now, ideally, as Corey mentioned, the goal is to play this on turn number 2. Now, this does happen. Sometimes you only find 1 creature, just a Novice Inspector, which is a bit of a bummer. But here's actually the problem. And you were an Analyst player, so you know this. You got to untap with Nissa.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to bring up here, is the fact that Muhan Yu was able to play the Nissa on turn 3 and now untap with it. And this is where things can start to get really nasty. Although, looking at Yu's hand, it's not great. Fires of Victory for a bit of interaction. World Soul's Rage is fine. But what we're really looking for here is one of these, what are we calling them? Fetch lands, I guess?
I want to call them Capenna lands.
Capenna lands?
How's that sound?
We can go with that. So these are the lands that we saw. They're common lands from Streets of New Capenna. You play them, and they have a sort of Evolving Wild style. Here's one on the screen for you now to have a look at, Broker's Hideout. They have an Evolving Wild style effect. You sacrifice them, go and search for a basic land of a certain description, depends on the land you play. This one, Forest Island or Plains, and then put it onto battlefield tap, gain a life. The downside is you don't have the option to do it when you want, like an Evolving Wilds. You can do it at a later stage, whatever else. Not hugely relevant in this game, in this match. But bringing these lands back over and over again is what this deck is all about. Whether it's with obviously the namesake card, the Aftermath Analyst. Some decks even play Reclamation.
Splendid Reclamation.
The Splendid Reclamation, the 4-drop sorcery that was first printed years and years ago. It's good to see it back. But here's the thing, Cedric. When you've got a Nissa out, these cards bring all these lands back from the bin. That's where things go really crazy.
That's where they get much better. Much, much better alongside Nissa Resurgent Animist. Now, will we see that happen over the course of this game? Well, found one.
And so trigger.
All right, so this is what we might call a Lotus Cobra effect here. Lotus Cobra was a card from the original Zendikar. It was a 2-mana 2/1. Had landfall. Whenever a land entered the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color, and that's exactly the ability that Nissa has here. In addition to the ability that lets you get an elf or an elemental out of your deck as well. But that's that is an important aspect of this deck, as we'll find out. But principally, it's the fact that when you cast and activate your Aftermath Analyst, if you get back enough lands from your graveyard, you're often up on mana.
Yes. And then once you're able to generate all of this mana, then things kind of go nuts. So this is, truthfully, Riley, a modest draw from both players. Convoke didn't really knock the door down in any meaningful way. At turn 3, Knight Errant of Eos is fine, but unexciting. It's not exactly why you're registering the deck, because you do have the ability to play that on turn 2 with something, I would say, relative ease, a pretty high percentage of the time. And while Nissa's on the battlefield, we're not seeing this Analyst deck go absolutely crazy on this turn, it feels like.
So this is the second land that's entered the battlefield under use control. So that will result in an elf or an elemental card being put into use hand. There's only elves. There's only the Analyst and the Nissa here. So another copy of Nissa here for you.
It's extremely finite what Nissa's going to find in this deck. So
all 5 mana.
And here now is a kicked Fires of Victory. So this says draw a card, first of all, because of the kick, but then also you deal damage equal to the number of cards in your hand, which was 5.
Cool.
And this is what playing blue gives you. Surprisingly, you wouldn't think it, Cedric, but the blue in this list is actually more interactive than the Jund versions. The Jund, even despite you playing black in addition to the base Gruul, it's the blue version that is more interactive with cards like Fires of Victory and Ill-Timed Explosion.
Yeah, it's strange to say that splashing blue is actually going to give you ways to deal with creatures, but that actually happens to be the case in this particular deck at this particular time in Magic. So you can choose to play other colors. You mentioned there's Jund versions of this deck. I'm sure there may be other versions of this deck that we don't even know exist, but blue is actually lending itself to be able to manage a deck like Boros Convoke. Now, to me, what's pretty important here is, can you get Nissa off the battlefield? And it looks like the answer is not yet. Just going extremely wide, which Boros does an incredibly good job of. And so now here comes another Convoke Skipoo.
And this time it's Convoked the full 5, right? Yep. Thanks to the Sanguine Evangelist making a bat token there, as well as that Novice Inspector, which of course is mana neutral when it comes to convoking. So top 6 cards, and can reveal now another Knight Errant if there's one of those top 6.
If you do the Convoke for the full 5, that does happen.
But no, we're just going to see a Voldaran Epicure, and that looks like another Resolute Reinforcements there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, you're able to find an Immodane Recruiter and really start to try to cross the finish line all in one turn.
Yep.
But again, this is the scary thing about playing against this Analyst deck, which is you still haven't removed Nissa yet, so this is a second turn that Nissa's been on the battlefield, where you've got to untap and have it on the battlefield and see if you can kind of do your thing here.
And you can see you setting up for a turn here.
Always a good sign.
We're going to be floating a lot of mana.
Always a good sign when the mana counters.
You also very helpfully put the Capenna land in the graveyard over the side there, so we can see how many.
Yep.
So at the moment, a Splendid Reclamation or an Aftermath Analyst would bring back just 2 lands, and ideally you're wanting more than that.
Yep.
3, 4, 5, 5's where it really starts going nuts. Because don't forget, all of these Capenna lands when they come in, they don't generate 1 mana. They generate 2 mana per land because of the Lotus Cobra trigger from the Nissa, because they'll put 2 lands into play. Your thoughts on this list generally, Cedric? I've had a lot of fun playing with it. I've really enjoyed the way that it wins. It does feel like a very silly, kind of over-the-top big mana deck, but what do you think in terms of its actual constructed competitive chops?
To me, these Analyst decks, if it's Temur, if it's Jund, however you want to go about building it, because they have a pretty general base of like Nissa, Aftermath Analyst, a bunch of lands, and then stuff, right? And then Virtue of Strength. The power level of the deck is undeniable. The simple question is, after sideboard, what does your deck look like? How are you approaching the rest in peace problem? How are you approaching people interacting with you and knowing what you're doing? Because we're we're way too deep into the format now where everyone knows what this deck is and what it does. So this isn't some unknown entity. This isn't surprising anyone. It's how do you stand up to people who know what you're doing, right? How do you stand up to people who have Rest in Peace, who know to kill Nissa right away? Are you able to overcome those things? Is your deck powerful enough to do that? We've seen plenty of combo decks in Magic's history, Riley, that say, yeah, I can shrug that off. I can beat that. I knew you were going to do that, and I came prepared by doing this. We don't have proof that this deck can do that. Maybe this weekend is the proof that this Analyst deck can fight against the hate.
It's when it's going to be really put to the test here. All right, so we've got a couple of triggers being put on the stack here, which is going to be important for us to get across. We've got World Soul's Rage being cast for 4 to kill the Knight Errant, but only 3 lands were put onto the battlefield. Now, the Echoing Deeps was able to copy one of the Capenna lands as it came to play, despite the fact that they... I'm not 100% sure on that rules interaction, because there were no Capenna lands in the graveyard. Obviously, it does work like that. Echoing Deeps was able to copy one of the Capenna lands. So that's 3 mana right there, because those all obviously trigger the landfall from Nissa. And now they'll all go and fetch other lands, which won't only buffer use life total, but will provide 3 more mana. So 6 mana for casting a spell that cost 6 mana.
Yeah.
So pretty good so far.
The ball is rolling now.
Yeah.
You know, this is what it looks like. And this is a crazy thing to say, but because of the slow start here from Stefano, Muhan is still 25.
Okay.
Still a ton of life to work with. And now here's Aftermath Analyst.
And we're going to see this is going to result in at least another 6 mana. But now that we've milled 2 more lands, we're going to see a huge amount of mana. And what is now going to restrict how much mana you can generate is how many basics he has left in his deck.
Correct.
Trigger. Yeah. Okay. So I choose this one.
So this one can copy even if it comes into play.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was the question that you were asking about Echoing Dips. And how does it work with these Capenna lands? And again, you and I talked about this in the limited portion a little bit, how players, this is kind of a short turnaround from when this set gets released into how it's incorporated into a tournament like this, which is, you know, does that exactly work that way? You know, Stefano had that question of you can copy that. That's kind of weird as far as the timing is concerned, but the answer was yes from Muhan, and also it looks like the table judge that is nearby to confirm Stefano's inquiry about exactly how these cards do interact with one another. So, look, more lands, more life gained, up to 29 now.
So, this is, I think, 9 mana floating at this stage now, because there were 5 lands that were brought into play. Those lands have all triggered Nissa's landfall ability, and as you can see, there's 5 mana in the pool, which will be joined by 4 more now, as the 4 basics that were fetched up by those Capenna lands come in. And now you has to find something to do with the 9 mana in pool, in addition to the 1 untapped forest that he's got there.
So this is the one other question about the deck too, which is sometimes you can do all this cool stuff and get all this land and have all this mana floating.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you might just have to say go.
Yeah.
Now, a Memory Deluge did get milled over, so at the very least, there's the ability to flashback that. We see the hand with Virtue of Strength. But there are times where it's just, nah, man, I'm going off and I'm all dressed up with no place to go.
Yep. So we're going to see, I think, the other half of Virtue of Strength here. I think we're going to see Garenbrig Growth. And Garenbrig Growth says, return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. It's a nice little play here from you, because this Aftermath Analyst will, assuming there are still basics left in the deck to fetch up, will generate more mana than it costs to cast and activate. And so with the 2 mana remaining, we could see this... Oh, sorry, it's 4 mana now. It's 4 mana now. So 1 mana, 1 green, 1 red. Oh, sorry, two green in pool here after this Aftermath Analyst.
You're both struggling tracking.
Yeah.
You and Muhan.
Well, he was flicking around the dice and fiddling with his have we played a land this turn?
And that's the deadly question whenever you play a deck.
Yeah.
You're like, I think I did. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
So this is, that's the second turn that Nissa's been in play.
Yeah.
The third one, I'm going to assume the game's going to end.
You'd hope so.
You know, especially with the Virtue on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So if you're Stefano, your job now is to say, yeah, I need to... I mean, dealing 29 1 turns a pretty big ask, but I mean, deal with something.
Because all of these basics now, they all tap for 3 mana each. And so a World Soul's Rage at this point would be game over, because you can just fireball them. you just point the World Salt's Rage at their face for 20 damage, and that's fine. That's easy. Just one-shot it, right? This is an observation I made when we were talking about the list, Cedric. The fact that... no, we're going to kill the. Going to kill the. Of course, going to kill the Analyst there. Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
When someone, oh, you're obviously killing my Nissa, right?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Leave that thing over there.
But this deck has a little bit more play against aggressive decks than you might imagine, just because it gains so much incidental life off those Capenna lands.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the incidental life gain in combination with just the slow start here for Stefano, which means the game's not ending this turn.
Yeah.
You know, and so that means that Muhan should have the ability to untap, has access to a boatload of mana. There's a memory deluge in the graveyard, and let's see where things kind of go from there. And this is really kind of the best punch that Stefano can throw this turn.
Yeah, which has, you know, a respectable attack, 12 damage coming across, puts you to 17. Not that strong at the end of the day, or 16 even. Losing the Aftermath Analyst does mean that you has to find something here that will continue his... Oh, well, he's counting his mana, so that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
That's how you know. That's how you know.
Yeah.
You're the Boros Convoke player. Oh, things are going great for me.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
how much mana you have. Okay,
yeah.
sure. Oh, you're tapping
this
low. This is actually this is probably great.
Yeah.
How could I possibly lose?
All right. So it is 3 mountains. So it's 9 red, 6 forest, so 18 green, and 5 islands, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. So 15 red, 15 blue. Got to know 3 times tables. It's very advanced mathematics.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Is that pure math?
It's pure, or maybe it's applied. I don't know.
Applied? Okay.
No, it could be either. Could be either.
Oh, good news.
Yeah.
That case is solved.
The case is solved. Don't worry about it.
Big news.
Yeah. Yeah. The case of the Getaway Express has been solved. We know what happened. All right, and that's going to do it here in game number 1. So the Temur deck, they're kind of doing its thing, although a little slower than I imagined it probably wanted to. But hey, it was given a lot of breathing room by Boros Convoke.
It was, and this is one of those instances. If you're Stefano, you know the matchup. You can't keep a hand without a 1-drop. You can't.
Yeah.
You have to get the party started, and you got to get it started early with just anything. Get to the battlefield, try to kill your opponent as fast as possible. The longer the game goes, the worse it is for you.
All right, opening things up now with a Warden of the Inner Sky
Card's
here
busted.
for Vinci, and this is a much better start from him, with the Inspiring Vantage there. Looking a lot better than what we saw in game number 1. On the other side of things, a Capenna land going and fetching an island here. And that might look like an innocuous start and effectively, you know, just an Evolving Wilds, but you really, as the Temur Analyst player, you really want a good amount of those lands in the bin nice and early.
Yes.
So if you're able to bring them back, you know, activate the Aftermath Analyst early on in the game, you actually bring stuff back that's worth having.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, one thing I do want to point out here, it might seem minor, but it's probably a little more major than maybe people do realize, is Inspiring Vantage in this deck. This is a new addition, of course, and previously Boros Convoke had some pretty poor mana. Had to play some pretty stinky lands in order to kind of facilitate what this deck is trying to do, most notably Thran Portal in multiple copies. That is no longer the case. Inspiring Vantage is a huge upgrade for this deck. So while it didn't get a lot of new cards as far as creatures are concerned, the ability for Boros Convoke to actually have a fast land that allows you to play your spells and not damage yourself, or maybe come to play tapped and kind of make you fumble and stumble along, is a huge upgrade for this strategy.
There are some decks that are just happy to have another dual lane, right?
Yes.
Like there'll be some decks that are just, oh, great, okay, these are in my colors, I want to play this. But Convoke in particular,
So you keep.
having a fast land that provides untapped mana of either color, turn 1, turn 2, huge. A land that painlessly casts Voldaren Epicure and Warden of the Inner Sky without an issue.
Yep.
Huge.
It's a huge deal. Huge deal.
Yeah. So we'll see cards like Seachrome Coast in Azorius Control later on. But they're just playing that because it smooths out their mana. They're not playing it because they necessarily have 1-drops and 2-drops to play.
Yep.
Doesn't hurt when you've got an early, you know, deduce or something you want to play. But a much bigger deal on an aggressive deck like this, Cedric.
Deck is thrilled at this inclusion.
Yep. All right. A Fires of Victory here, taking out the Warden. And an ill-timed explosion.
That's going to bite the dust.
Picked from the Invasion of Gobakhan.
Now, this is one of my favorite battles that came out. when battles were premiered. I thought this card was going to have a huge impact across multiple formats, and it's been a little bit underwhelming. But this is a spot where it looks very, very good. You get to look at the hand, take that card. You know, for as long as it remains exiled, its owner may pay more to be able to cast it. Sure, it's going to cost an additional 2, but you wouldn't play Ill-Timed Explosion if it costs 6. You'd never do that because that's not a very good Magic card.
And it flips into a really nice one as well in Light Shield Array. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that attacked this turn. And then you can sacrifice it for 0 mana. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible.
That's right.
Until end of turn.
So your creatures are here to stay. They're going to get a little bit bigger along the way, ideally, once this does transform. Now, again, this is another situation here where Stefano's start, it's fine. You know, it's not the fastest, most aggressive start that Boros Convoke is capable of. This isn't a ceiling draw, but it is an interactive one. You know, it has caused Muhan to interact with the removal spell, and now in kind, Stefano has interacted with the invasion, taking the Ill-Timed Explosion. So, again, not the fastest start, but things could change very quickly because Stefano has a pretty potentially explosive hand with the Imodane's Recruiter and the Knight Errant of Eos.
Now, Cedric, I think the time has come for us to address the elephant in the sideboard, or, in this situation, the elephant that very much isn't in the sideboard.
I'm listening.
0 copies of Rest in Peace in the Boros Convoke sideboard here for Stefano Vinci. So not a card that Muhan was going to have to worry about. Indeed, I actually don't think there is a whole lot in Vinci's sideboard that deals with graveyards.
No, you see, what Vinci has is the best sideboard card. Kill you.
Okay.
That's the trick. There's no need for Rest in Peace if I just kill you really fast.
Sure, right.
And,
yeah.
And that's my favorite sideboard card.
You can have your graveyard.
Yeah.
I'm just going to end the game.
You do your thing, and you can do your thing at -5 life, -10 life. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But the interesting sideboard card here, and this is maybe Stefano and Squad tested and found that the invasion was better than Rest in Peace from this particular deck. Now, trust me, Riley, we're going to see plenty of copies of Rest in Peace in sideboards over the course of this weekend because we know there's a lot of Esper hanging out and constructed. But for Boros Convoke, this might be the better option.
All right, Light Shield Array has been... well, the invasion of Gobokan has been won. The battle is over, and we now have the Light Shield Array, which is going to juice up that Resolute Reinforcements and its token here. And now you really has to find something, and I think it was just lands in hand here for our team of players. So under the pump now.
Yeah, now things are going to really start to pick up. Novice Inspector being the draw here. Maybe you want to go that route with the Knight Errant. Maybe you don't. It doesn't look like a land was drawn to be able to play Imodane's Recruiter.
I think you just send.
But yeah, it's just.
Like this.
I'm a big proponent of just in the matchup that looks like this, get the game over.
The thing about this as well is you might sort of be at a crossroads thinking, oh, do I want to develop the board? But because of the Light Shield Array, this attack does develop the board.
Correct.
This puts 4 power and 4 toughness on the battlefield, right, at the end of turn.
Yep.
With no extra mana investment. And so I look at that and go, well, that's you could tap all those creatures for Convoke mana and put 4 mana and 4 power on the battlefield, or you could just get in for a bunch of damage and still have the same amount of power and toughness put on the battlefield. I'm not saying one or the other is necessarily better in any given situation.
Sure.
But here, I really like putting the pressure on.
And the pressure was plenty.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was a really well-played game there by Vinci. The perfect amount of disruption plus pressure, and also, admittedly, a pretty weak draw from the opponent. The Ill-Timed Explosion, I think, was something that Muhan was kind of relying upon and didn't get there. And so now we move on to game number 3.
This is a very optimistic hand from Stefano.
An optimistic hand is what you're calling it, all right.
Now, if there's a Novice Inspector or a Voldaren Epicure off the top, good keep. But there's not.
Instead, there's a Gleeful Demolition, which makes it an even more optimistic hand.
Now, let's do small sample size theater. Game 1, no 1-drop. What happened?
Yeah.
Wasn't even a game.
Yeah.
Game 2, got the ball started a little bit early with a 1-drop, a 2-drop, an invasion,
Yeah.
pressure plus disruption. What happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying Game 3 is going to play out like Game 1, but I'm not optimistic.
Look, you know, Cedric, there's a really important concept that Magic players have to sort of wrap their head around when they want to start leveling up their game. Little concept called results-oriented thinking.
That's right.
Right? And so if you do something and there is a result, there is a direct causal link between you doing the thing and the result happening.
Perhaps.
And that it's never varied. Right?
True.
If A leads to B one time, it will always lead to it later, right? Results-oriented thinking, really important way to play the game, and just approach life in general, I would say.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
You know?
Look, this is a high upside hand if you draw something that makes an artifact for Stefano, which Well, they're an Epic
All right, we got there.
That brings a blood token along with it,
Yeah.
which Gleeful Demolition can target. So you're kind of, by drawing the Epicure this turn, you're not really that far behind as far as your progress is concerned, right? Because you're going to add a bunch of power to the battlefield. Just my concern is a slow start. Maybe a mulligan's a better spot to be in. Maybe not. Obviously, draw step was kind. There's the artifact, the blood token, blow it up.
Yeah.
Now you've got a little something cooking, but it is not the fastest of starts.
So 3 goblins from the Gleeful Demolition. A much better position than Vinci was in a single turn ago. And we're seeing now a Spelunking. And Spelunking, an important card in this Team Analyst list, Cedric, because now lands into the battlefield untapped. Uh-oh, that forest should be, that's not going to matter. But the forest should be untapped because of the Spelunking, which makes a huge difference when you're looking to have those turns generating, there you go, as much mana as you can.
Yep.
Because you activate the Aftermath Analyst, those Capenna lands come back in. The lands they search up are untapped. So that means 3 mana per land if you've got a Nissa out.
Oh, now we're talking. No Nissa yet.
No Nissa.
Now, we've discussed how important Rest in Peace is going to be against this deck. And is it better to have this or is it better to have Invasion? Well, this is kind of a test case right now, right?
Yeah.
Because, we could play the hypothetical of what if this card was Rest in Peace? What impact would it have on the game? Well, Graveyard would be gone. The 3 lands that are in the graveyard for the Aftermath Analyst would be gone. Probably pretty good. Now, how does Invasion look in this spot? Well, I'm getting the info. You've got an Ill-Time Explosion and a Memory Deluge. Both those cards are pretty good. Probably going to take the Sweeper.
Probably going to take
give what my battlefield looks like.
Yeah.
What if that was a Rest in Peace? How does that impact the game? Again, that's kind of like a hindsight thing. I'm curious to see exactly how well the Invasion plays out in this particular game.
All right. We're going to see the potential for a crazy turn here for you if Nissa is the top card of his library. Because if Nissa is on the top, I believe that we could go Nissa, Capenna land, activate the Analyst, Memory Deluge, and then we're off to the races.
Okay. And that's scary.
So if there's a Nissa on top here, we could really be in for a treat. It's not a Nissa, or Muhan Yu has a fundamental misunderstanding as to how to play the deck. I'm going to guess that it was not a Nissa on top of the library there.
Yeah, it looks like it may have been Fires of Victory.
Righto. Okay. Well, probably not what we're looking for here. Those goblins all picking up a 1/1 counter thanks to the Flip Light Shot Array here. So what do you do if you're you in this situation? Fire off the Memory Deluge, look for something. Are you drawing a card, killing one of the goblins?
Cool.
Just passing.
Yeah.
Just Deluge.
Just Deluge?
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Looking for that Nissa maybe? And you can see a card that's been brought in from the sideboard here. Bonnie Paul. The clear-cutter Giant Scout is a very important post-board card, Cedric, because it sidesteps the rest in pieces that your opponents may bring in. Now, this is an open deckless tournament. You will know that Vinci wasn't bringing in any copies of Rest in Peace. But having a diversified threat portfolio, game 2, always a good thing.
Yep.
And this is one of the reasons we see this massive 6-drop brought in.
Yeah, this card is very, very large.
Very, very in charge.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. And when it does hit at the battlefield, it is a game changer. And you talked about the ability for folks to sidestep, maybe just kind of change what their game plan is over the course of this weekend, especially with taking Rest in Peace into account. Again, that's going to be kind of the overarching question for Analyst fans around the world, which is, have these great players at this Pro Tour found a way to combat Rest in Peace and how impactful it is against this deck? Because there are people that we talked to at the players meeting that simply said, I didn't play Analyst because I couldn't find a way to beat Rest in Peace in a meaningful way. Just couldn't figure it out. So is that going to happen here again? Is Bonnie Paul, is that the way to solve that problem? Are large creatures the best sidestep? We'll see. Now, Convoke is going wide with all sorts of stuff going on here now. This is I know this is you love this.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's get this
you
done.
love
Here it
this
is.
so
So Aftermath Analyst is sacrificed 3 lands, then 3 Capenna lands are brought back in addition to the forest. And what this can lead to now is untapped lands being put in play because of those spelunkings, right? So we get a mountain. Probably go and get a couple of island, or at least one more island. and now has the option to either fire off the Memory Deluge or kick the Fires of Victory.
Yeah, and this is where Splunking is a huge addition to this deck.
Yeah. Even without Nissa, the fact that Spelunking allows you to turn these Evolving Wild style New Commander fetch lands from the bin and actually gain mana off them makes a huge difference.
Yep.
And so you here responding, I think this is all in response to the Sanguine Evangelist being played. And this could be I think this is probably going to be the Fires of Victory here. There is a mountain tucked away amongst those forests. So Fires of Victory will deal 2 damage, Cedric.
And that would take care of the Warden, I believe.
That's the card you're worried about in this situation? Rather than the goblins?
Write down the life gain from the lens? Yeah, 21.
Looks like they're going to clear up their life totals here real quick.
Oh, sorry. It's 21, yeah. It's 21,
yeah.
It's 21, sorry.
Both players still pretty high life totals here, as you can see.
But the other thing you have to take into account right now is the Light Shield Array.
Because the Hexproof Indestructible? Are you really sacrificing that to save your one Warden?
It's unlikely, but I think it's just it's worth thinking about.
It's another option.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, you really hitting the tank here.
Please make your decision soon.
And the judge steps in to just give him a little nudge. So you need to make the call. I still think it's going to be, it's going to be the removal spell, and I think that's the right call. He get that Warden off the battlefield, try to prevent the deck from developing, the Boros deck from developing its board too much further.
Because the Warden does such a good job of development.
Yeah.
Had that not been in response to the creature and of course the bat, then the Warden can tap itself and the 2 other creatures, and now you're scrying and increasing the quality of the draw step.
You're also, it's not dying to the
to the fires. Yeah. So it's all gravy at that point.
But now you really has to find something. Vampire's Vengeance is not enough now because these goblins are all 3/3s. So that's come a turn late. So now I think you's relying pretty heavily on this Memory Deluge to find some action here, and we're going to cast it main phase, Cedric.
It's time to go looking. What will we find?
All right. All right, so there's there are some key cards in these options here. There is the Virtue of Strength. There's also an Aftermath Analyst, which I believe can be cast and activated. But the thing is, without a Nissa, you're not really doing anything, kind of spinning your wheels a little bit.
Yep, and that's a little bit of the fear of playing a deck like this, which is you can do a little bit of wheel spinning sometimes. You know, a bunch of lands. Your mana looks pretty good, but what are you really effectively doing? You got some sweepers, but you mentioned how Vampire's Vengeance not a great sweeper right now. No. So, you know, what are you actually accomplishing with all of this development, which it feels like not a ton at the moment, but one draw step can change that whole thing.
But don't forget, there is still the ill-timed explosion that could deal with all of this, right? You draw 2 cards, you discard something and Virtue of Strength, and all of a sudden Vinci doesn't have a board. Well, I guess you just activate the Light Shield Array, so it's not going to be as useful as all that. Maybe that's what you was thinking. Either he doesn't want to spend 6 mana on what is effectively a disenchant.
Yeah, and again, this is why the conversation a little earlier that we had, which is, imagine that's a rest in peace.
Yeah.
Like, Light Shield Array, the Invasion plus Light Shield Array has been very good this game.
Very, very
It's
good.
pumping up these creatures. It is making the sweepers quite poor. Now, if this had been a rest in peace, yeah, like the stuff going on with the Graveyard and the Aftermath Analyst, that stuff might not have been happening, but the clock isn't as quick. You don't have, you know, the ability to play through multiple sweepers. Not great, but you're working through it now because it is Invasion and not Rest in Peace.
I know we're drawing conclusions from a very limited data set, but here, if that were Rest in Peace, this Vampire's Vengeance would be great.
Yeah, perhaps.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
And sure, you wouldn't have 4 extra lands, 3 extra lands on the battlefield, but I don't know, you could build towards a different plan of attack there. You know, you're trying to control the board until you can play something big like a Bonnie Pool. The game takes on a different sort of
very much so.
atmosphere
Yes,
altogether.
Very, very much.
If it's a Rest in Peace, yeah.
And
yeah, I think, look, at even just my estimation of this game and at this matchup here is changing just because of what we're seeing. We're actually learning something really important here.
Absolutely.
In seeing the invasion of Gobakhan and the role that it's playing, and as a direct, I guess, oppositional alternative
Yes.
to Rest in Peace. So, yeah, really interesting to explore this, Cedric.
Now, the card that was just drawn here for Stefano, Get Lost, it's a card that has a lot of positive text in a matchup like this. You've talked about the power of Nissa.
Yeah.
Kind of solves that problem. Virtue of Strength. You can solve that problem. And let me tell you, map tokens,
Yeah.
you can have as many
Yeah,
as you
doesn't
like.
matter.
Team Analyst fan, do not
Have
care.
4.
That's right.
Yeah.
4 damage.
All right, so we're seeing a bit of Secure Tribe Elder action here.
Ah, yes.
Look at this. Love that.
You called me a boomer.
Block sack. All right, mate.
Just want to make sure
Excuse me.
That's a thing that happened earlier today.
Secure Tribe Elder is a very relevant card in 2024.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Oh, Cedric outing himself as someone who obviously doesn't shuffle up his hundo card stacks very often, mate. Guilty as charged?
Busted.
Yeah, busted. Commander fan Cedric? Oh, I don't think so. I think in the heads up between the card Route and the card Secure Tribe Elder, I think you're still well and truly the grandpa here, my friend.
Just want to make sure that you know that you're referencing a card from October 2004.
Yeah, when was
and
the last
calling
time?
me old.
When was the last time that someone cast Route?
It's a personal question.
not for broadcast? All right, we can discuss this later. All right, Aftermath Analyst brings back a bunch of lands here. They're all coming to play untapped, of course, and not a lot to do with that mana, unfortunately, for our MTG China Open champion here.
Well, it's never a good feeling when your opponent's doing that. Muhan's doing the old tippy-tappy too, counting the manas. What can I do with the right draw step sort of thing?
Well, Vampire's Vengeance here, it is an instant. It is an instant. An instant speed. We call these often Pyroclasm effects, effects that deal 2 damage. But against these goblins are juiced, man. They've been hitting the gym. they've been doing their power squats.
They're getting some work done.
And now they're big boys.
Yeah, you know, the thing about these Pyroclasm style effects, you know, the damage-based sweepers.
Yeah.
Depending on the matchup, limited shelf life, right? There are some spots where it's always going to get the job done. There are other times where it's really not, and this is one of those times where it's not particularly effective at all. And don't forget about the Battle Cry trigger and just all the damage that's coming across here this turn. So it's a really, really, really positive turn there for Stefano with Get Lost still at the ready.
How many cards?
So let's see what you wants to do here. Does have the flexibility offered by Garenbrig Growth, which will enable him to pick, again, not quite any card, not quite any card, but any land or creature, which is not a bad place to be. But he will have to find something because on just 12 life, facing down a pretty enormous army here, we'll have to do something to stay in this one. Time's running out.
Indeed. Indeed. It's time for a very timely draw step, huh?
All right. We are going to see now the Vampire's Vengeance.
Does that just kill just the bat? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay,
I kept looking
target
at it,
bat?
and I was like, I think that just kills the
All right.
bat.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we take them. We take that. I don't know why the vampire is being particularly vengeant against the bat.
Well,
Generally, vampires and bats, I understand, get on pretty well.
yeah, the evangelist is a vampire, so
Yeah.
it's a really, really tough way to just kill a bat.
Yeah. 3 mana instant, destroy target bat.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
Construct bolster.
that problem's solved. That's true.
All right. I think this is it for you. There has to be something this turn. Otherwise, you're facing what is quite comfortably lethal next turn.
Yeah, the question is now just what exactly is you looking to try to find to get out of this? And I'm kind of racking my brain in the same way that he is right now, which is just not entirely sure how to get out of this. Light Shield Array has done a fantastic job this game.
Yeah.
It really, really has. All parts of the Buffalo have been really good.
You does have a, I don't know, the world's worst divination in a 6-mana draw 2, right? You don't have to discard cards off the Ill-Timed Explosion if you don't want to.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
So you could find an extra card or 2 from that. And the blood token as well. So it can do a little bit of digging. Here. But first we're going to see Garenbrig Growth, and that's going to bring back Bonnie Paul. Okay, so that's 2 bodies for the price of 1. And that cow, oh boy. Not necessarily a holy cow, but certainly a bloody large one.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point.
Oh, excuse me. 1,000 pardons to all the bovine all the bovine enjoyers out there. It's an ox,
Tough.
not necessarily a cow.
Tough but fair.
I'm not sure specifically on the taxonomic differences between oxen and cows, but that may be a discussion for another time, Cedric.
like
I'm not sure.
If
the show really slows down, right?
Yeah.
Like if we get into Seif and Shota in here, and we got some time to kill, we can get into ox chat for sure. That's not going to be a problem, Ced. We'll get into that.
In case you guys want to join in on Twitter, that's hashtag oxchat.
Hashtag oxchat. That's right.
Perfect.
And now we're going to see Virtue of Strength. So this is going to triple the mana that you has access to and really open some doors for him in terms of how much stuff he can put onto the battlefield. But again, a little bit limited by just how many cards are in hand here. We may see Ultimed Explosion as just divination. I wouldn't be surprised, just to find some extra business. But right now, what is it going to be?
These dice are going up and down and all around.
Yeah, yeah.
How much mana is going to be floating at the end of this?
Well, that's 6. That's 6 mana. Or 7 now. Okay.
You have 9 mana, so you have 2 lives, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to cost one.
This is really good of Stefano. I mean, both players. Just let's be as clear as possible here. In this instance.
Well, I saw the 6 mana and I thought, okay, well, this is the Ultimed Explosion, but no, an extra mana has been spent to cast to flash back Memory Deluge from the bin. So that's 7 cards off the top. And you can pick the one he likes the look of, or the 2 that he likes the look of the most. We're not getting to see those cards. He's playing them very close to his chest in a literal sense.
And it is worth noting, Riley, excuse me, that there's still a light shield around the battlefield.
Yeah.
There's still the Get Lost in Hand.
Yeah.
There was a Mirrex that was played last turn that can crank out a 1/1.
Yeah.
So there's still plenty of things for Stefano to do. It looks like Stefano is, we like to say, F6'd.
Yep.
But could make a move or a myriad of moves at some point.
And obviously there's no point casting, well, I guess maybe not quite no point, but you don't get a huge advantage from casting the Get Lost on the Virtue of Strength because you can just tap your lands in response.
Yep.
Yeah, float the mana.
So, yeah, if you're Stefano, look, Muhan, you get all the mana.
Yeah.
Do your worst, which is not the most comfortable feeling in the world that from a deck that can make this much mana, but at this stage, do what you're going to do. The Get Lost is going to take care of something at some point.
Yeah.
Just don't know when.
Even the Spelunking might be a valid target for it if we're, if we're going to bring back a bunch of lands. Like, if you put an Aftermath Analyst ability on the stack, you might get lost the Spelunking in response because that will prevent all of those basics from coming in untapped from the Capenna lands.
Absolutely.
As weird as it sounds to go after the Spelunking rather than the Virtue, that could be the line.
Okay, it's a bit complex.
And Muhan Yu here, pointing out the fact that this is a complex situation for him. This is sort of this is the turn, right?
Yeah.
This is the
you got to get it all right this time.
Yeah. If he doesn't get through this turn, he just loses the game. There's no two ways about it, really. So I think that's another Virtue in hand. That is another Virtue in hand.
Okay.
So that will mean these lands tap for 9. So brings back an Aftermath Analyst here.
By the way, this is what you talked about.
Yep.
This could work itself into the equation here.
Yep. And I think what we'll see is a Get Lost on the Spelunking.
Yes, you had 8, you should have 7 now.
Yep.
Yep.
So there's 7.
7. Cast the Virtue here.
Okay.
And Vinci, at this point, could get lost the original Virtue or the Spelunking.
Yep.
It's going to be the Virtue. Okay, interesting.
And so this is where you kind of, if you're Stefano, you're like, okay, maybe this comes up the works a little bit. Maybe this is the, oh no, I didn't see this coming. I thought you didn't have anything. Like I didn't think there was much you could do. Or more importantly, I didn't think you could interact with an enchantment.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you had a case or,
but
activate Mirrex.
The thing is, right, you know that there's an Aftermath Analyst in hand because you saw it was brought back by the Garenbrig growth. Okay, it's going to be Bonnie Paul instead. All right.
Okay, so Bonnie Paul plus an Ox.
Bonnie Paul plus an Ox plus a billion squillion Ox. This Ox is enormous.
While he was playing, right? Right, so Your time was done while you were
So
playing your turn.
15. It's a
yours
15,
is the
15
first
odds.
additional turn.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, and we've hit time.
Yeah, that's
Time in
that's
the
what I was
rounds.
hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's your time.
Time in the round.
Okay.
So 0.
So now they're trying to
Turn
figure out
0,
exactly whose
turn
turn it
1.
is. So this is okay.
Okay,
now-
so it was
now we're
turn.
having fun.
It was turn 0 when during Muhan Yu's turn there, and Vinci is now opening up turn number 1.
That's what it looks like.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, once we reach the 50-minute time limit for these rounds, players get an additional 5 turns. So one player will have 2 additional turns, one player will have 3 additional turns, because the player who had whose turn it was when the timer ended effectively, they have their extra turn there. And then at the end of those 3 additional turns, if there's not, or those 5 additional turns, if there's no winner, the game's a draw.
Okay.
The match is a draw in this situation, because both players have won a game each.
Okay. We got it.
So one for this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we got it.
But either player could win from here.
Oh, for sure.
This is not one player playing for the draw.
Yeah.
Either player could win this game.
Combat.
Beatdowns.
And for Vinci, the path to victory is very clear.
I want to block. So this is 3-2, right? Yes. And this
5-4.
5-4. Okay. Oh, these are 5-4.
Yeah, so 3
And,
goblin
5,
tokens are all 4 plus the battle cry trigger,
Yeah.
which means they're all attacking for 5.
So me is on 13.
So an attack for
And
10
this
here.
is 5-4.
Or, sorry, unblocked.
Yeah.
10 damage is coming across because of that battle cry. That's right.
Okay, I block that like this.
Okay.
3.
And Bonnie Paul really showing how useful generating 2 bodies for 1 creature is worth.
Okay.
And a bat from the Evangelist. And now it's over to you. 2 Aftermath Analysts in hand means that there's a lot of mana available here. Blood token as well can cycle away for something. Don't forget that there is that ill-timed explosion.
Yeah.
Which could be key in just finding 2 extra cards off the top of the library. What we're looking for here is a World Soul's Rage.
Yeah, because Mana's known that. No, Mana's. I mean, it hasn't been a bottleneck for a while, but
No,
it's certainly no.
he's got 48 mana.
Yeah, it's no bottleneck now.
Yeah.
Use 1.
So it might be time to like maybe just blow these map tokens. Yeah.
Yep. Map tokens also. I did forget about them. Oh, another ill-timed explosion. All right. This would be a particularly well-timed explosion, I would say.
Oh, hello.
Or is this all cards with that name? That's what we're checking here now. Does Light Shield Array mean that all cards with that name cost 2 extra, or is it just the one that's exiled? It's just the one that's exiled.
Okay, so.
And another Virtue here.
I'm trying to give this one a long. Is that going to stay? Okay,
No,
so that's going to.
I like this.
So that's going to stay and then drop with a blood token.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Activate the blood token to discard draw. So now each land will tap for 9 mana.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's 3 tripled again, 9. But the question first is, what do you want to get back? With the Garen Brig growth. All right.
Well, if you're gonna be milling, this can give you some more information on what you want to get back, right? So this is a good place to start, is with the Analyst. Yeah.
All right. So there we go. So we can explain what happened there. We had the Shigeki milled in addition to the World Soul's Rage, Cedric. So with the Garen Brig growth in hand, which Vinci knows about, right? You've milled over these 2 cards. You cast the Garen Brig growth targeting the Shigeki. You activate the Shigeki's channel ability to bring back the World Soul's growth, the World Soul's Rage. And then you cast World Soul's Rage for X equals 10 billion, 20 billion, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Straight at the dome, GG, and that's it.
So that Analyst deck is a hoot because it can do a lot of different things.
A hoot and a half, mate.
And you and I kind of chatted about this a little bit yesterday, which is the Analyst deck you would think, because it doesn't have a ton of creatures and it doesn't have a ton of removal. It has a couple sweepers, obviously, and can sideboard into more. But you would think just a pure aggressive deck would be a bad matchup. It's actually not that bad.
It's not.
You know, like Boros Convoke can really put on a pretty fast clock, which is why I was talking about during the games that the longer the game goes, the worse it is for you, as we've just seen. Once that deck kind of gets the ball rolling, it's pretty hard to get to have it stop doing that, right? So you got to be pretty quick out of the gate to kill him, which we saw in game 2.
Yeah.
But we didn't really see that in game number 1 and game number 3. And because the Temur build of this deck does have some resistance against creatures, that actually kind of highlights the fact that you have to be fast against them and be unrelenting, because if you aren't, again, the longer the game goes, the worse it gets. And game 3 is a pretty good example of that.
I just think that, having played this deck a fair bit, I think that the matchup that it has against aggro decks is actually even better than it looks because of the incidental. Like, aggro decks that are well-tuned, they deal 20 damage really effectively. But against this deck, you have to deal 23. You have to deal 25 because of the 1 life from all those new Capenna lands.
That part's really important. And last thing I'll say on this, that third game, no Nissa.
Yeah.
No problem.
Still got there. No Nissa, no problem. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, my friends, but we've got more Standard coming your way to round out coverage of round number 4, so stay with us. We'll be back live from Seattle in just a few moments. Hello everyone, and welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Thunder Junction. Riley and I in the booth with Cedric Phillips, and we are well and truly stuck into our standard round now. Round number 4, opening up the constructed portion of this huge tournament over here in Seattle, in the United States. The home of Magic in many ways. It's where Wizards of the Coast is headquartered. There's a lot of familiar faces in this town when it comes to making and creating this game. And it's fantastic to celebrate it here in the Pacific Northwest, Cedric. And we're ready to jump into our next match here, which will have another familiar face to many Magic fans around the world in the form of Ely Kassis. But Ely is playing against another regional champion here, Marco Del Pivo. Marco Del Pivo won a Legacy European Championship in Ghent over in Belgium. And it's good to see him representing the European region here at the highest level. Ely Kassis, however, we all know and love this bloke. Never met anyone with anything bad to say about Kassis. He has won some pretty high-profile tournaments in the past.
He's had a very nice past handful of years.
Yes,
really
yes,
nice.
And also just a dead-set great bloke.
Yes.
Really, really lovely gentleman. And it's great to see these two players getting underway now in game number 2. You can see Marco Del Pivo taking out game number 1. Looks like Del Pivo had a mulligan in game 2. And he's on Temur Analyst as well. So we're going to get stuck straight back into this deck that I know and love so much. On the other side of things, it is the deck du jour.
Yes.
Esper Midrange. Let's have a chat about this one, Cedric.
If we must. Esper I kid, mostly. Espers, we're going to see a lot of it. It's the most popular deck in the tournament, and with good reason, because all the cards are very good. And that's one of them. That's one of them there in Fairy Mastermind. Rafine is kind of the name of the game. It's kind of the glue that holds the entire deck together. One of the best and most powerful cards in all of Standard. The deck has fantastic mana. It has something to do with its mana effectively every single turn. It can be proactive or it can be reactive. It's just kind of a deck that a player like Ely and players who really like a lot of agency, Riley, really, really turn towards.
Oh boy, we're seeing Del Pivo really just, oh my goodness, making an absolute meal of things from very, very early on. That looks like, is that an unlimited forest there? Or
That's
revised?
a nice forest.
Yeah, but it's right next to a Cans of Tarkir basic land box mountain. Like, come on. Let's tighten things up a little bit. You're playing a deck with a lot of basics, okay?
Boy.
Let's just do a little bit of due diligence, make sure they're all matching.
See, he's getting into your head already.
Already in my head.
Yeah,
I'm not even playing against this guy, and he's just opened up a timeshare in my brain.
That's right. It's an easy matchup for him versus you.
Very, very much.
You're thinking about this. Now, Ely, you can't get in his head. Now, Ely needs to make sure. Oh, boy. Get a taste of this.
All right, so Tishana's Tidebinder on the Echoing Deeps means that this is just now effectively a wastes.
Yes.
It just taps for colorless mana. Not the worst thing in the world.
No.
Right?
No.
But certainly not what you were hoping for when you're Del Pivo, because obviously with the cave you're hoping to copy the Capenna land that's in the bin and go and get another presumably unmatched basic, Marco Del Pivo. But no, certainly not the end of the world here. Looks like duress on the stack, and in response we're going to see a Fires targeting the Tishana's Tidebinder.
No, I think Ely has negate, and it looks like he wants to make this exchange. Okay, so this is going to push through the duress, and there's some decent options here.
Now, eagle-eyed viewers amongst you may have noticed that the players are playing at what looks like a comically quick clip here, and that is because we have sped things up just a little bit. This is not a live, this is a recorded match, and we are wanting to show you as much magic as possible. And so to squeeze this extra match in here, we are playing this a little swifter than it was originally recorded. I'm very glad we're able to do this sort of stuff. It's much better than us sitting here and getting into Oxen chat earlier than scheduled while we try to fill.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Okay.
I was here for hashtag Ox chat.
Oh, let's get into Ox chat later on, I'm sure. All right. So, Virtue is going to be put on an adventure here by the look of things. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Oh, Ely's going to get a little beat down. Make a map while we're at it, huh? Okay.
Right. Big fan of this card. Restless Anchorage.
It's a very good card.
It's no Celestial Colonnade. Let's make it clear.
Nothing is.
Nothing is.
Nothing is, but it is a very nice creature land for these Esper decks to play. Just another way for them to be able to cross the finish line, but also helping to ensure that their mana basically works every single game.
And I like this from Ely as well, putting pressure on, right?
Yeah, I mean, pressure plus disruption, that's the name of the game from Esper in this matchup. I will say this time and time again, especially when we do watch Temur Analyst play, the longer the game goes, the more it favors them. So you would like to try to get the game over with sooner rather than later. Esper doesn't have the quickest clock when Rafine isn't involved, but this is fast enough. And don't forget that map token, now that creature land's a little bit bigger now, right? So the clock is pretty real now. I don't know how you feel about this island. You okay with that one?
That's a nice one for sure.
Okay, great.
But
great.
I don't have an issue with that island in particular. It's just that there's the M14 island two doors down. Like, pick one or the other.
I like picking them both.
Oh my goodness, you're a degenerate. You're as bad as Marco Del Pivo.
I wouldn't mind being that bad. He wins a lot.
You wouldn't mind being 2 and 1 of the
That's right.
the feature match area on in round number 4, I guess. All right. That is a nice island. That looks like a beta island.
I'm pretty sure it is. This is not my specialty.
No. It's alpha or beta. That's a really nice one. And look, I'm not trying to take anything away from the basic landbox island as well. There are some nice basic landbox islands.
Look at you walk it back.
No, I like them. I'm just saying make a match, dude. I got a big box of Zendikar, full art basics, right? My friend Callum gave them to me many years ago. I've treasured them ever since, right? And I put them in all my decks.
Okay.
They're fully matched. Fully matched. I know. Look, you're mocking me. There are dozens of us. There are dozens.
Oh, no. I thought we were about to go back to the Ox land. There's a Bonnie Paul in hand.
Oh, we can get into Ox chat.
Ooh.
We can for sure do Ox chat, dude. That's not a problem.
Is there perhaps okay. Yeah, there's Bonnie.
Yeah, Bonnie Paul. Cutting through the clear. Let's go. Bringing in Bo, her enormous Ox.
That's tough.
All right, deep
Yeah,
Kevin Bat.
that's
Deep Kevin Bat's
Bat is-
got a thing or two to say. Who would win, an enormous giant scout or one flappy boy?
Yeah.
It seems like the 1/1 here has won this particular round.
Yeah, that bat is tough. Oh, man. Discard rest in peace. I mean, with good reason.
Discard rest in peace.
It's not particularly good right now. It is very good in the matchup in general, but it's just not good right now. Yeah,
and that's going to do it here. All right, we're going to go to game number 3, convincing win there from Eli Kassis playing this Esper deck, and now it's anyone's match at 1-1. We are back here with essentially an opportunity for either of these players to really get off to an absolute flyer. 3-1, you're feeling good. 2-2, yeah,
you're fine.
It's all right,
but.
It's all right.
3-1, obviously better than 2-2. Now, here's what I'll say about that last particular game. That was kind of the recipe there for Ely, right? You had a decent amount of pressure. You had casted duress. You negated a spell.
Yep.
You played a deep cavern bat. Rafine kind of showed up a little bit late to the party, but you had enough pressure kind of going on that things were okay. Now, again, deep cavern bat is the hallmark of disruption plus pressure.
Yes.
Now, it's only a 1-1, yes, but that's only a 1-1 for right now, because if Rafine worked itself into the equation, everything changes very, very quickly. And as you can see from Marco's hand, doesn't really have a great answer to any of this.
Well, let's have a talk. Let's have a chat about what Del Pivo's hand reveals to us here in terms of his post-board approach, right? There was a player I was talking to yesterday about the post-board teamer matchups and what you want to do in order to either fight through the rest in peace or just sidestep it completely.
Sure.
And something that the teamer deck can do post-board is turn into something of just a generic and also, honestly, kind of bad mid-range deck.
Yep.
But when your opponent brings in a huge amount of disruption to counter your plan A, even if your plan B is a little mediocre in a vacuum, if your opponent's deck doesn't match up against it well because they've brought in what is now irrelevant hate cards like Rest in Peace, all of a sudden they'll just die. They'll just die to a Titan of Industry.
Yeah,
because you can get to 7 mana, you can cast it, and they don't have an answer to it.
And that thing has a huge impact on the game if it does resolve.
Yeah.
Once it gets on the battlefield. So that's the big question, is that kind of sidestepping plan going to work for these players here this weekend? Now, we know Ely has access to Rest in Peace, and we'll see if it does show up in this particular game, how impactful it is. We saw last game where Ely didn't need it because they're already so far ahead they could discard it in that stage of the game that we did see in game number 2. But yeah, I will continue to be curious about the plan for folks to sidestep Rest in Peace and how they're going to try to combat the hate that people are bringing this weekend.
Maybe I shouldn't share this information because I like playing Temur and I want to win games with it, right? Which is already a hard enough obstacle as it is for me. And as we see now, Rest in Peace taken care of with Negate. You know the card that I'm really worried about is Disdainful Stroke.
You sure you're not worried about Rest in Peace?
I am worried about Rest in Peace, but when I'm bringing in Bonnie Pauls, when I'm bringing in Titans of Industry, Disdainful Stroke gets me both ways.
This is true.
Right?
This is true.
Like, it counters all the big cards. It counters my World Soul's Rage. It counters my my Memory Deluges for my plan A. But then also it counters these Haymakers that I'm bringing to try to sidestep the post-board games.
No, you're absolutely right.
So I think it's a really, really good... It's just a good card in general, I would say. But look, Rest in Peace now. We're seeing this played here by Kassis. As Marco Del Pivo negated the first one, but doesn't have an answer for the second.
Yeah, and when you see Ely run the first Rest in Peace into the negate that he already knows about from seeing from the Deep Cavern bat, if you're Del Pivo, okay, well, I know what's going on.
Right.
Ely's not doing that on accident, so.
Yeah, and he's not playing 2 negates. Come on. Get out here. Why would you play 2? Imagine playing 2 negates. Oh, he's actually playing 3. Never mind. What a card.
That's a great card.
Negate?
I mean, and Rest in Peace. They're both great.
Yeah.
Everything's great. Wandering Emperor's great.
Yeah. Mismatch basics are a choice.
Oh, well.
Wandering Emperor here is a good way to continue to pile on pressure, and I really don't like Del Pivo's position here.
No, I don't like his spot at all. This is my concern.
Yeah.
Is, if I'm being honest, I think Ely's draw here has just been okay.
I think it's been a bit better. I think it's been a good draw.
Yeah,
it's not
the top end.
No.
And it's not the bottom end. It's just
like a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a medium draw
Yeah.
here for Ely. And if this is what a medium draw looks like, and it looks like Del Pivo is struggling, do they have a plan? These Temur Analyst players and Marco, of course, we're watching him play right now. Does he see a battlefield look like this and just goes, well, it's over. Like, I don't have a series of draw steps or anything like that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the case. Maybe there are some draws here that, we're going to take a look at Titan of Industry, which Ely already knows is in hand. So,
it's going to save
take a
time.
look here. Yeah, save a little bit of time instead of calling a judge for the Oracle on Titan of Industry.
Yeah.
Can I beat this sort of card? If Titan of Industry does resolve, is it good enough? Which it can be. So, players kind of doing this little back and forth here. But my fear for the Temur Analyst players is just Esper's the most played deck in the room. Is that good or bad for you? Now, if they feel it's good for them,
yeah,
they're going to have a heck of a tournament.
Yeah. Oh, we see no more lies now on the fires here. And now with a needs a green source specifically. Needs an untapped green source. So forest, just forest, the only untapped green source in the deck, and that's not one. So the Titan of Industry isn't coming down here. So
this might be a tide.
A tide binder would be pretty nasty, just to really let them know. Yeah, Ely Kassis asserting dominance here.
Again, Tidebinder, much like Deep Cavern Bat, kind of the perfect combination of disruption plus pressure.
It doesn't even tap for mana, Cedric.
It's
it just
hanging.
sits there. It is a blank piece of cardboard. And now, Kassis can send him in. And that's 9 damage. Gain 1. Gain 1. Don't forget the gain 1.
I love
Lifelink on the bat.
I love a gain 1.
Yeah, love a gain 1.
Oh, not again.
Can I have this one? Says Del Pivo. May I, please, as a treat?
Yeah.
But no, not going to be enough, and we're going to see Ely Kassis take him down. Marco Del Pivo getting beaten 2-1. And Cedric, if we are going to look for patterns with this deck, with Temur Analyst, maybe we will see a lot of Game 1 victories, and then the losses post-board.
Well, this is what I think is going to happen a pretty high percentage of the time with that particular deck. Look, Temur Analyst deck is very powerful. Everybody in the room knows it. All of these 200-plus competitors know that deck is very good. A lot of the people that qualified for this tournament said, let's work on this deck. It's so good. Like, did it get new cards? Not really, but it did get some cards that are good against it. And so the question was, can we beat the cards that are good against it? Rest in Peace, Invasion, Duress, Disdainful Stroke, all this sort of stuff. Some players obviously feel they can. Right, but when the game looks like what we just saw there, which is Bat, Wandering Emperor kind of shows up, Rest in Peace resolves, there's a Tidebinder, and those lands are a little bit slow. They're powerful, and they're an important part of the deck, but they're a little bit slow out of the gate, so couldn't get the Titan of Industry, and it looked like it would have been countered even if he did, because I think Ely ended the game with a Disdainful Stroke.
Disdainful Stroke was in the hand,
If people are taking the Analyst deck seriously,
yeah,
I think it's going to have tough times after sideboard. I do agree with you, though. Game 1s are going to look pretty good. So can you find a way to win Game 2 or Game number 3 when you're probably going to be on the play? That's going to be one of the big questions of this weekend.
I'm looking forward to seeing more Temur Analyst lists. I've got other thoughts to share about how to beat Rest in Peace post-board. And we will get to them in due course, my friends, because right now we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Maria and the gang at the news desk. So don't go anywhere.